Alright, hello and welcome to this walkthrough on how to set up Postgres on your local machine using Docker. First, just a quick prerequisite check here. Please make sure you already have Docker installed in your system, as it will not be covered in this video. I did create a walkthrough on how to install Docker on a debian/ubuntu based system. I will leave a link in the description box for your convenience. Alright, so first thing is, what is Postgres? Postgres is a free and open source object relational database management system, or a database server, and its primary function is to store data. It is similar to something like MySQL, SQL Server, Oracle database, and other relational database systems. Now, this tutorial is not going to be about Postgres, but rather how you can set it up locally on your system using Docker. As you can see on my screen, this is the official Postgres image on Docker Hub. I will leave a link in the description for you to read through at your convenience. I do recommend you do that, as there are a lot of configuration options that you can use to customize the image for your likings. I'm just going to show you how I set it up, how I quickly provision it essentially to run it locally and debug and for development purposes as well. Okay, so one of the other questions a lot of people have is why use Docker containers as opposed to a native installation of Postgres? There are a lot of benefits to using containers in general, but one of the main advantages it has is a stable, well-defined, and reproducible execution or deployment environment, meaning that the containers you create locally can be replicated all the way to your production environment, because all the dependencies it needs are self-contained and deployed as a unit. You don't have these things from a lot of people or developers that kind of, it runs on my machine, but for some reason it's broken in production. You don't have that kind of issue. It kind of mitigates it. I don't want to say it completely eliminates it, but you don't have these issues as often. All right, so this is all the non-implementation talk I want to do here. Let's just pull the Postgres image and run it on our machine. So I'm going to jump over to my terminal, and a couple things I want to do first. I want to make sure that Docker is running. I'm going to do, and the first command I'm going to issue is systemctl status docker. And as you can see here, it tells me that it's active and it's running. So that's good. I'm just going to press Q to exit that and clear the terminal screen. The next thing I want to do is I want to check for any running containers or images, which I'm not going to have any because I didn't install any, but I want to show you how that's going to change after we issue the commands to pull that image and run the container locally. So the first one I want to do here is just check for any images. So sudo docker images -a, and as you can see, there's nothing. The next one is sudo docker ps-a, which is checking for any containers, and there's going to be nothing. So that's good. So let's pull the image and run the container locally. And to do that, we're just going to do sudo docker run, and we're going to specify a name. The name can be anything you want. I'm just going to use whatever makes sense to me, which is going to be local Postgres container, and I'll show you where we can see this later on. And the port that I'm going to specify to connect to this container is 5432, which is convention. And the next thing that this image allows us to do is pass environment variables to it. One of the environment variables which is required is the password, which is going to be specified as such, Postgres_password. And I'm just going to specify the value that I'm going to give it is password. You don't want to do this in production. You handle passwords differently in a production environment, but since I'm running this locally, this is what I'm just going to choose for it. And the next environment variable that I'm going to pass is optional, but I want to specify it. If you don't specify it, it will be given a default value, and the default value for this particular environment variable, let me actually just type it out here, which is going to be the user. So what is the user you want to create for this container? If you don't specify this value, the environment variable and the value, it's just going to default to Postgres. I'm just going to specify SA here. And then I'm going to run it in detach mode. And the last thing is what image I want to pull. I'm telling Docker to pull. And where I got this from is if I navigate back over to the browser here and scroll all the way up to the top, this is the official image and this is the name of the image, Postgres. So now if I press enter, it's going to go and fetch that image and then pull it and then run it locally. will be done shortly here. And there it is. So now, if you recall at the beginning, up here, all we did was we issued these two commands and there was nothing. So now if we reissue these commands, you see now that we have the Postgres image. And then if we do the same thing for the containers, we have the container already as well here. And you see this is the name that I specified. You could have you might have chosen a different name, but this is what I chose. This is the port. It's gonna 0.0.0 is localhost port, TCP, and then this is that container ID as well for it. And this is the image that is associated with this container. Okay, so now that we pulled the image and it's running locally, and we know that it's running locally because we can see it. The next thing we want to do is connect and see we want to see if we can connect to it. Now, a lot of people will use different IDEs to connect to a database. For example, I like to use DataGrid, but I'm not going to use it here. Another common one is pgadmin. A lot of people use it when they're connecting to Postgres. I'm just going to use the terminal. I'm going to connect to the Docker terminal, and from there I'm going to connect to the Postgres and then issue SQL commands. And I'll show you how to do that. So to do that, we're just going to do sudo docker exec -it local Postgres, and I'm getting this from here. You see the name? That's what I called it. You can use the ID if you want, but I'm just going to type the name out. Container. Oh, and this is good because I didn't specify bash. This is I want to connect. So all I did, I forgot to put the bash at the end when I'm connecting to the Docker terminal. So now that I'm connected, in order for me to, so now I'm going to specify what user I want to use to interact with Postgres. And the way we do that is PSQL -U. And if you recall up here, I specified a user. If you didn't specify a user, you'll type Postgres because that's the default value. But since I specified a user called SA, that's what I'm going to connect as. And as you can see, I'm connected now. Now I can issue SQL commands to Postgres. And one of the common ones is create database. And for this one, I'm just going to say Postgres tutorial 2022, since we haven't hit 2023 just yet. And make sure you put a semicolon at the end and press enter. And you see it gave me an output and it says create database. So that's good. That's a good sign. Now, in order for me to see the list of database, I just press /L, and it gave me a list of all the databases that are associated with SA. And you see this is the one I created right now. Postgres tutorial 2022 SA. And with that, it brings us kind of to the end of the walkthrough. I hope you found it useful, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.